sir.
Dana, let's bring in criminal defense attorney Philip Holloway to talk more about this. So here we have something that was thought to be a hit-and-run death back in 2015. And now South Carolina Law Enforcement Division is looking at this in the wake of the Alex Murdaugh trial and going, maybe this, does necessitate a second look here. What do you think they could learn from an exhumation?
Yeah, good morning, John and Dana. Listen, this was blunt force trauma. That was the finding of the original autopsy, and I don't think that's going to change. It was massive head trauma. That's not the kind of thing that you're going to see a lot of difference on if there is a second autopsy. But the thing to watch here, I think, really, guys, is whether or not law enforcement actually gets involved in this process. Does law enforcement support this exhumation and this independent autopsy? Of course, the independent autopsy can be done privately by the family, but what I want to know is, does law enforcement also want this body to come up again so that they can have another look? And if SLED and law enforcement support this endeavor, that tells me they think something went wrong the first time around. Now, the big question is, of course, even if it's blunt force trauma, how did that blunt force trauma get there? What happened? Where and why? I don't think local law enforcement ever actually considered the idea that possibly this head trauma was inflicted somewhere else other than the middle of this road, because as Jonathan Seri just reported, there was no other outward indicia of any kind of collision with a vehicle. So those are going to be the key questions that we're going to have to look at moving forward.
Yeah, so I guess the story goes that he was about 15 miles away from the Moselle property that we see aerial pictures of here. His car broke down. He got out of the car and he was hit in the head by the mirror of a passing car. But there's some inconsistencies with that story. Let's put them up on the screen. First of all, there was a defensive wound on his hand. Why would that be there? He was found in the middle of the road from where his car ran out of gas, and he was wearing loose-fitting sneakers, which would be inconsistent with being hit by a car. You would think that those shoes would come off. Phil?
I've seen it where the shoes will come off, absolutely. But we just don't know unless we have more, I guess, circumstantial evidence of how he came to be walking in the middle of that roadway. Do people typically walk down the middle of the road, or do they walk on the side of the road? There was some reporting initially that it might have been the side mirror of a passing 18-wheeler. The fact that it's a hit and run that's never been solved, that's troublesome enough. I personally have some doubts that this was actually a hit and run. I have no doubt it was blunt force trauma, but we need to know how that blunt force trauma occurred, and we need to know where it occurred. It's very difficult for me to conceive how this many years later, if we bring that body up, we're going to get any additional trace evidence or other things that might answer those questions. But if it does nothing other than brings closure to the family, it will be worth it, because those people need closure and they need justice.
Yeah, a kid I went to middle school with was killed as he walked along the side of the road by a tractor trailer's mirror. So not out of the realm of possibilities, but we'll see if it's applicable to this case. Phil, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.